Hello again everyone, I'm Miss Davis and today we're going to be looking at plant reproduction. We are going to look into the reproduction again of flowering plants, so we're focusing still on the angiosperms here. Okay, remember that plants undergo a unique life cycle of alternation of generation, as you see here in the picture. Now we discussed this process in really great detail in the plant introduction lecture. So today I'm going to focus more on the structure of the flower, seed, and fruit. So this mature flower you see here contains both male and female structures. The male structure is here. This is the stamen and is made up of the anther and the filament. As you can see here in the picture, the anther is responsible for producing the pollen grains. Now pollen grains are going to contain the sperm. The female structure is the carpel and it contains the stigma, style, and ovary. So here's a closer look at the ovary, which contains the ovules. The ovules are going to be producing the eggs, okay? And then the ovary is going to protect those eggs. So you can see here they're going to protect their eggs and their embryo once it gets fertilized. So here is the review of the plant flower structure. Now, before we can talk about the unique process of double fertilization in angiosperms, we need to understand the difference between the words pollination and fertilization. Pollination occurs when the pollen moves from the anther, which is where it's produced in the male part, to the stigma, which is the top of the female part. Now, pollination can occur through the wind, but it can also use pollinators like bees and other insects. Once the pollen sticks to the stigma, the process of double fertilization can begin. And this is what we're seeing here in our picture. All right, so here it's stuck to the stigma. So the pollen grain is sticking to the stigma. And the pollen grain begins to produce what we call a pollen tube. This pollen tube is then going to travel down the style to the ovary. Now, the pollen grain is going to contain two haploid sperms that you see here in this picture. Now, remember, haploid means they have half the number of chromosomes, but there's two sperm here, and this is where the double comes from in the double fertilization. Now, the two sperm then are going to enter the ovary, and once the two sperm enter the ovary, we're going to see fertilization take place. One sperm is going to fertilize the haploid egg. This now becomes the zygote, which is going to be diploid. It got half the copy from the sperm, the other half from the egg, and so now it's 2N. This is going to grow into the new plant. Okay, so this is going to be the plant embryo. The second haploid sperm, however, is going to fertilize what we call the central cell, or called the polar nuclei. Now the polar nuclei, guys, is already 2N. Well, the sperm is 1N. So 2N plus 1N is 3N. This creates an endosperm, which is triploid, 3N, and it acts as the food source for the new baby plant inside the seed. So let's look at the seed real quick. The seed is going to contain a couple of things. It's going to contain the plant embryo. It's going to contain the triploid endosperm, which is the food source. But both are going to be surrounded or contained in a seed coat. Therefore, guys, the ovule, once it's fertilized, is going to become the seed. Now here you can see the difference, the slight difference between the monocot and the eudicot, which was discussed in a previous lecture. But here you can see the seed. Now, the ovary and other parts of the flower are then going to develop into what we know as fruit. A fruit protects and helps also disperse seeds. Now, with dispersal, this means they're going to attract animals to eat them. The animals eat the fruit, but they cannot digest the seeds. So the seeds get deposited away from the parent plant to grow into a new plant. Now there are two main groups of seeds we're going to discuss. First, we have the dry fruits. Pea pods, maple tree fruit, and grains such as wheat, corn, and rice are all examples of dry fruit. Okay, they're dry in their structure. The second group are the fleshy fruits. Fleshy fruits are like berries, apples, and peaches. And this means that they have a flesh that surrounds the seeds. Okay, so this is what we're talking about here, dry versus fleshy. Now, besides being characterized as dry and fleshy, fruits can also be characterized as simple, aggregate, and multiple. So let's look at simple fruits first. Simple fruits develop from a single carpel. Okay, that's where they have one ovary, or several ovaries fuse together. A good example of a simple fruit with one carpel of fused ovaries is a tomato. You can see that here. See how they're fused together, but it's still just one carpel that's here. A fruit that develops from other parts of the flower besides just the ovary is known as an accessory fruit. And so a good example of an accessory simple fruit is an apple. And that's what you see here. It's also a simple fruit. Now, an aggregate fruit and multiple fruits are compound fruits, and they develop from many individual ovaries in separate carpels. So a raspberry is a great example of an aggregate fruit, since its flowers have many separate carpels located in one flower. On the other hand, multiple fruits have many flowers joining together to form one fruit. Pineapples are the best example of a multiple fruit. Like I stated earlier, fruits are there to aid in the dispersal of seeds as well as protect them. Seeds can remain dormant until growing conditions are good. Once the seed starts growing, this is called germination. So the seed, when it starts growing, is called germination. So guys, when the seeds are in your stomach, when you've eaten them and they're in your stomach, those conditions aren't good. So they're not going to grow into a plant. Sometimes you kind of tell kids not to eat watermelon seeds because it'll grow into a watermelon. It can't happen because those conditions are not good for that seed. So it sits dormant and you'll pass it out. Now, make sure that you read your textbook in order to review the differences between the seed germination in monocots and eudicots. Okay, that's important on your portfolio, but make sure that you read your book. Now, this is the last lecture for Unit 2. So, good luck, study hard, and good luck on that Unit 2 exam.